G'day. So, Dave Chappelle has been slapped with the label transphobic. Unfortunately, the usage of this label has been so loose in the past that it's easy to just not pay attention to the people who wrongly assign it. Which is unfortunate because I think it unintentionally moves the conversation away from any real problems that these communities should want people to be aware of. Dave is not the only comedian to hit hard and close to home with his jokes. And I find it counterproductive to try and break these jokes down and write them off as something truly hateful when the man speaks so openly and honestly about how he does not hate people for simply being trans. In his own special, he even mentions where his issues lie, with white people, whom he says he's had to argue with his entire career. He's made plenty of jokes about whites as well as presented some hard truths about them. As a fellow white person, I still find these jokes funny as I do the rest of Dave's comedy because he's a funny man but also very observant, smart and honest, and I do not think he would ever point a finger of disgust at me just because my skin is white. Just like I doubt he would look down at anyone else for saying hello to him and having white skin. He speaks about the truth and creates humor around the extremes and genuinely harmful people or groups. At the moment, this all feels no different to the narratives that were being concocted around the release of Cyberpunk 2077. Some people saw a trans person on a poster and suddenly a video game was transphobic. Not only is the video game somehow attacking people based on their identities, but the developers were apparently transphobic too. The people complaining could have sat down and debated with people who actually oppose them for bugger all reason other than they're different. They could potentially change minds, raise awareness, help the world become a more understanding and peaceful place, but instead what we got is an entirely made up narrative that was born from a bulge on a person on a poster in a game that sexualizes and commercializes everything as part of its world. Cherry picked would be an understatement. These extremists go on to become the butt of the joke. Like picking on extreme Christians for calling the original Doom a game that encouraged Satanism, despite the fact you're the one killing the demons. It's that level of stupidity that's usually always attributed to religious zealots and nutjobs. Now, my dislike of the religious extremists does not mean I hate people who simply believe in a religion or that I think less of them as people. My ex's nan is Christian, attends church and all. I couldn't say anything bad about her if I wanted. She is a lovely woman. In the past, and most likely in the future, I will make jokes about the idea of religion in general just being a series of stories that people have randomly decided are true, despite zero physical evidence proving the existence of Jesus, Zeus, Ra, whoever. But I recognize the positive impact these stories can have on people, and the fact that some will resort to them as a means to pull themselves up from whatever rut they're in, or use it as a moral compass in order to become better people in society. See this little balance of mine? Jokes, criticism of the extreme, but acceptance of the reasonable. This new special, The Closer, seems no different to me. Jokes about some trans stuff, which, by the way, doesn't take up the entire special, criticism of the extreme side of the community through humour, and acceptance of the ones who are simply trying to find their place in the world like the rest of us. I'll say it again, Dave speaks very honestly. If people took the time to listen instead of reaching into their bag of labels to start throwing around, maybe they'd have a different opinion. Or maybe not. I think some people are just predisposed to only using a fraction of their brain cells at all times, like Jack Thompson. There is progress to be made by sitting down and explaining your point of view and educating others in order to bring about a stop to real violence and other issues. Wasting energy on some jokes is not how change is brought about. There are jokes I personally don't find very funny, or topics that hit a little too close to home for me to just laugh at. But I don't hold any contempt for the person saying such things. As similar as we all are at times, we are all still unique and different in many ways. A comedian of all people can't account for every single possible reaction to their stories during a show, nor should they have to. But the beauty is we are all free to disengage with the humour we don't like, the movies that don't entertain us, the books that don't absorb us into its story, etc. Some people will find one topic funny while another won't. Trying to have control over what can or can't be published or expressed based on the extremist views of a single group is not a path anyone should want to follow. If I was a braver man, I would prove this point that people should be allowed to do what they want or say, so long as it's not to the detriment of others, by drawing a picture of the Prophet Muhammad, something that has been decided as not allowed for some reason. But, to be honest, I don't really feel comfortable drawing a man fucking a child. The extremists claim to want to be treated equally and fairly, but in asking they seem to demand special treatment over others. Just look at the demands following the Netflix walkout. They want executive positions just given out based on a label they have, and they want content flagged for being transphobic based on their interpretation. There are countries where the people in charge are so backwards and without developed brains that they still see just being gay as unnatural and even have laws against it. Kuwait, Papua New Guinea, and Saudi Arabia, just to name a few. In this embarrassingly large number of terribly outdated countries, I could theoretically look at a woman with love and desire in my eyes without anyone saying anything. Maybe not so much in some countries because they're even more backwards with their rules and laws regarding basic human freedom. But if I was to do that exact same thing to a man, I'm suddenly regarded as subhuman, someone who could potentially be killed. Now, that's not to say arguments shouldn't be had because it might be worse in another country. I've never been a fan of that sort of idea. The point I'm trying to make is to recognize what actual oppression or violence is. A comedian making jokes whilst saying out loud that he doesn't hate you is not the man to be targeted. Why waste the energy? If these labels are going to be applied so easily, then we may as well do it for everyone. Every single comedian has been a racist, transphobe, misandrist, sexist, etc. It doesn't mean anything. Instead, it takes real meaning away from the people who actually are these things and actively works against the fight these marginalized groups are trying to have. Context matters a hell of a lot. I think more people need to understand that and actually listen to the words leaving a person's mouth instead of reading headlines and cementing your position before learning anything else. You'll be surprised by what you can learn. After hearing Dave Chappelle suggest Hannah Gadsby wasn't funny, I decided to watch her special Nanette. I liked it a lot. It's not only a stand-up show, there is a lot more to it and she shares a lot of very personal stuff with the audience. But I wouldn't have known about any of this if I just decided, oh yeah, Hannah isn't even a real comedian. Why do I think that? Because Dave Chappelle suggested she wasn't funny. I would hope people can recognize how ridiculous it is to just decide on a position when a total of 5% of the information has entered your brain. Nobody on this earth has all the answers in life. No one knows what lies beyond death, whether or not we're here for a reason. We don't even have confirmation of aliens being real, for now. There is a line from Ricky Gervais's Afterlife that has always stuck with me. All we've got is each other. We've got to help each other struggle through till we die, and then we're done. And that really is life at times. It can be such a struggle. More so for some, less for others. Hannah says in her special something along the lines of laughter being something that connects us. I think it can also be a way that helps you confront something. It could very well be the method through which your eyes become open to a concept they were once closed to. I don't like the idea of small groups of people deciding what is or isn't off the table to be spoken about. Dave doesn't either. Apparently it's all jokes until it's about you or your community. Which is a shame because if you can't laugh at yourself, what can you laugh at? Until the next video, have a good one.